With the playoffs just around the corner and the first playoff rankings being revealed, I have to make a video reacting to the Week 10 playoff rankings. This is big for college football. The first playoff rankings, this is when you really start looking at all the teams and how big of a shot they have at making the playoffs. So I'm going to start off with the bottom of the list, number 25, Air Force. I think Air Force is a good team, and I don't really expect them to be ranked any higher because they are a group of 5 team and they have a bad schedule, but they are 8-0 and they definitely deserve a top 25 spot. At number 24, you have Tulane. Tulane is above Air Force, and I think Air Force is the better team, but Tulane does have the better resume, and they are in a little bit of a tougher conference. So props to Tulane being number 24. At number 23, it's Kansas State. Kansas State, I think they deserve this spot. They've had a tough schedule being in the Big 12. They got some good wins. Number 22, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's a good team. They've really turned it around since their bye week. Oklahoma State has been pretty impressive. Their offense has been flying. Their offense is really good, and they got a big game against Oklahoma this weekend. Number 21 is Kansas. Just like the other two Big 12 teams placed ahead of them, I think Kansas deserves the spot. They're a good Big 12 team. In the Big 12, it's really Oklahoma and Texas for the only teams with chances at the college football playoffs. But Kansas, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, they're all good teams and can battle with them. So it's going to be hard for Oklahoma or Texas to make the playoffs. At number 20, a lot of people may not agree with this, but the playoff committee has USC at number 20. USC, I think they still do deserve the spot, being in one of the toughest conferences. Pac-12 is really good this year, and they're still 7-2. And 2 of their losses come to top 15 teams, so USC, number 20. And at number 19, UCLA. I also agree with this. I think UCLA deserves a good spot, and they're ahead of USC. UCLA has a couple good wins this season. They beat Washington State, and they got a tough game coming up against Arizona this weekend. They're 6-2. Their defense has been playing really well. Another defense that's been playing really well is number 18, Utah. Utah's only 2 losses come to Oregon and Oregon State. Both of them are in the top 20. And Utah's a pretty good football team. They really struggle on the offensive side, but number 18 is not a bad spot for them. At number 17, you got Tennessee. Tennessee is 6-2. Their 2 losses come to Alabama and Florida. So Tennessee, they've got some good wins this season against Texas A&M. They got a win against Kentucky. And their defense is pretty good. Their offense is playing a little better recently. Number 16, Oregon State. Oregon State's a pretty good football team. One of the better teams in the Pac-12, as they are ranked number 16. So props to Oregon State. Their only losses coming to Arizona and Washington State. 2 teams where they could have won the game, but they lost both those games in really close games. And at number 15, Notre Dame. Notre Dame is 7-2. And I think they deserve to be a little bit higher, maybe above LSU, who's above them. But Notre Dame, they definitely deserve top 15. Notre Dame's a really good team, despite their 2 losses. They had a tough, brutal 4-game schedule, or 4 games back-to-back. They played Duke, Ohio State, Louisville, and USC all back-to-back. It's a tough schedule for them, and they won 2 out of the 4, which isn't bad, but Notre Dame, they're not in the playoff contention, but they are in the contention for a good New Year's Six Bowl. They are a good team, and they were really close to winning that Ohio State game. So what happens if they win that game? They could be possibly in the top 10, maybe top 5 if they beat Louisville. Because if they would have beat Ohio State, they might have not lost to Louisville. Who knows? At number 14, LSU, just like I was talking about before, I don't think they should be above Notre Dame, but give props to LSU. They've been playing pretty good football. Their offense is rolling, and they got a big test against Alabama this weekend. At number 13, you got Louisville. Louisville's been a pretty good team this year, and I know I'm not really high on this team, but I do say they do deserve a top 15 spot at this point. I mean, they had that 1 loss against Pitt. They had a couple close games at the start of the season where they could have lost easily, but after beating Duke the way they did, I think they deserve a little bit more respect. I'm still not high on them winning the ACC, but for now, I think they are a good top 15 team. Number 12, Missouri. Missouri really has a good chance to get in the picture for the playoffs. They have a good test this weekend against Georgia. Georgia's going to be a really good game for them, as Missouri is 7-1. Their only loss coming to LSU, who was number 14. So props to Missouri. They're doing good stuff right now in the SEC, and they have a shot to be first in the SEC East if they can beat Georgia. At number 11, Penn State. I do agree with Penn State being a little lower, being they've had a terrible schedule, and after that game against Indiana, I don't really know what to say about them. They looked really good at the start of the season. A lot of people were thinking they were better than Ohio State and Michigan, but what do you expect? You play cupcake teams, and then you play a real team, you lose. But they didn't just lose. They got dominated, really. Ohio State's offense didn't really do much, but they still got dominated and lost. It should have been 20-6. Penn State did put together a good drive at the end of the game, so props to them for what they've done this season, being 7-1, but still not living up to expectations. Number 10 is Ole Miss. Good for Ole Miss, doing really good stuff right now. Their only loss comes to Alabama, who is above them. Ole Miss is undefeated, and they're still alive in the SEC West, but they really do need help because Alabama has to lose 2 games, and Ole Miss needs to win out. And Ole Miss still has to play Georgia, so it's a really tough road for Ole Miss, but there's still possibilities with them being number 10. And if they could play good football and keep improving, then maybe they could do it. Number 9 is Oklahoma. Oklahoma was a team that a lot of people thought maybe was the best in the country at one point. They looked like a very complete team. Their offense was playing good. Their defense was playing good. But after that loss to Kansas, people are starting to back off on Oklahoma making the playoffs and winning the national title. But they still are a good football team, and I still think they deserve a top 10 spot at number 9. And at number 8 is Alabama. I gotta say good things about Alabama. People keep wanting them to lose every week, and they just keep proving people wrong. They had 1 loss against Texas at the start of the season, but don't get me wrong, that was at the start of the season. Alabama, they've improved since that game. I can tell they're a different football team, and they've been playing good football despite a couple close games. But Alabama's really picking it up. And if they can win out, they get Georgia in the SEC championship, and they have a realistic shot at making the playoffs and being a pretty high seed, too. And at number 7 is Texas, the team that beat Alabama. Good job, Texas. Your only losses to Oklahoma. You got some good wins against Alabama, blowing out Kansas. And that's something Oklahoma couldn't do, is beat Kansas. And Texas blew them out. But Texas, they still have a chance at making the playoffs if they win out. I'd say they're probably in. And another team who's really looked really good lately is number 6, Oregon. I know they lost to Washington, but right now Oregon looks like the better team than Washington. Oregon is a very complete team on both sides of the ball. I mean, experts are literally saying it, that Oregon can win the national title, and I agree. Oregon looks like one of the better teams in college football, but only time will tell because we still have a couple more weeks of football to play. And when we get the playoff picture, or when we get the actual playoff bracket, when we get down to the wire, that's really going to say who the best teams in college football are. And we'll have to see how those teams play in the playoffs. And at number 5, Washington. I still think they do deserve the spot for now. They don't even look like even a top 10 team. But Washington, they do have that win over Oregon. They were playing really good football all the way up to their last 2 games. I don't know what happened to them. But there's still time in the season to pick it up. You shouldn't like that you start playing bad at the end of the year, because you should get your bad games out of the way at the start of the year, and they're starting to play bad now. But Washington, they still have some time to get things figured out. So hopefully they can figure their stuff out, because I'm rooting for them to win out, but I do want Oregon to beat them, because I am an Oregon fan, and I mean, I'm rooting on the Pac-12. They're different this year. And at number 4, Florida State. Now, I was kind of surprised how low they had Florida State. I was thinking they should maybe be 3, possibly even 2, because of their resume. And now I know they had that bad game against Boston College, but it was 1 game. It was 1 game, and they had a lot of injuries. And not only that, I mean, look at Georgia. They had some close games, too. Michigan's the only team that maybe should be ahead of Florida State. But I don't know why Georgia's still number 2. I mean, they definitely should be at 4 or 3, but I feel like Florida State is better than Georgia. Their resume's been better. And Georgia, I know they've had a couple good games the last couple of weeks, but they still have more to prove, even though they're back-to-back national champions. We got to go off of this year. And that's just how it works, I guess. But on to number 3, Michigan. Not really much to say about Michigan. I guess they deserve a top 4 spot, being how dominant they've been playing bad teams. But they've looked so dominant on both sides of the ball. Like, It's pretty impressive, to be honest. They've held like every team under 10 points, and they've been scoring like 50 points the last couple games, so good job to Michigan, but I get why they're not number 1 or number 2. But number 2 is Georgia. Not really much to say about Georgia, but they do have a brutal slate coming up against Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Missouri. I didn't really say that in the right order, but those are the 3 teams they play. And if they lose one of those games, I don't know. They might be in trouble for making the playoffs, just because of how tough it's going to be to make the playoffs this year. And at number 1, rounding it off, I think this is the right choice for number 1, being how tough their resume has been. Ohio State at number 1. They have a good win against Penn State and on the road at Notre Dame. Both of them were top 10 wins at the time. And they got a good win against Wisconsin on the road. I mean, it's not a great win, but it's a decent win. And they've been pretty dominant all year. They had a couple questionable games at the start of the year, winning by not as much as they should have won by, but Ohio State, they have the best resume, and I think they do deserve the number 1 spot. And that's going to do it for my video, and really the playoff picture is going to start getting very hyped up. It's going to get intense, and I'm excited to see what they do with these teams and how they rank them. But this is only the first playoff ranking, so we have a couple more weeks. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I just created a Discord server for my YouTube channel and to create a community. So if you guys like my content, like I said, subscribe to the video and also join my Discord community. It will be in the description below. And peace out, guys.